When we open the page of ancient Chinese history, we notice something strange. It seems like war was everywhere. The Xiongnu, the Xianbei, the Turks, the Khitan, the Jurchen, the Mongols were northern power after another at different points in history, aiming to conflict and competition with the dynasty of central China. And this raises an important question. Why couldn't they simply sit down and try to find a way forward? Were people in the ancient world really only able to solve problems through war? This question is not as simple as it seems, because the history we see may only be part of the full picture. Let's start with something that is easy to overlook. Much of what we think we know about the ancient world comes from historical recorders, but historical recorders never captured the entire story. What did they focus on most? Events that changed the balance of power, wars, conquests, the rise and fall of dynasties, because these were the events that changed the direction of an era. So they were wars right now. But outside of war, many other things were happening at the same time. Marches across the borders, envoys traveled back and forth. Different people exchanged goods, ideas, and culture. These things often did not leave the same lasting markers of war. Because the Han Dynasty and the Xiongnu, when people think of them, war is usually the first thing that comes to mind. But in reality, even during times of conflict, trade and exchange between the two sides never completely disappeared. Silk, grain, and iron goods moved north. Horses, force, and other resources moved south. Even the single powers, the fights on the battlefield one year, negotiated peace the next, and exchange and war after that. War and exchange were never opposite. They often existed at the same time. War was simply more visible. It changed borders, it created heroes and losers. It could decide the fate of dynasties. But what about peace? Peace often happened quietly. So thousands of years later, when we open history books, we see war. But we often forget the exchange that were never written down. But here's the question. If both sides benefited from trade, why did war keep breaking out? Why did peace agreements seem so difficult to maintain? First, we need to correct a common misunderstanding. Many people believe that farming civilizations and nomadic civilizations were two completely different worlds, even naturally opposite to each other. But that was not the reality. They were always connected. Many nomadic powers also practiced farming and trade. Some eventually built powerful states. The Liao, the Jin, the Yuan, all of them were examples. And the dynasty of central China also depended on horses and resources from the steppe. So, the real issue was never that the two civilizations could not live together. The real issue was this. When resources became limited, the different survival needs came into conflict. What mattered most to an agricultural society? Stability. Because land was the foundation of their survival. The farmer planted crops in spring and waiting for the harvest in autumn. If war did join the land, the damage lasted far beyond a few days. It could threaten their survival for an entire year. So, for agricultural states, the borders were a matter of survival. But nomadic societies face a very different reality. They depend on grasslands, and grasslands were never fixed. A place might have rich grass and water this year, but next year they might need to move somewhere else. If the grassland could not support their animals, the entire community would face a crisis, and this created a fundamental conflict. The same border. For the farming side, it was a land that protected their security. But for the nomadic side, in certain situations, it could become better to survive. So many conflicts were not simply about who was more ambitious, or who could not be trusted. They conform to societies and pressure with different survival needs. So behind the words, there was more than the pressure to survive. Sometimes it was also about the power itself. A nomadic leader, if he could not bring back wealth and resources, might lose the support of his people. An emperor of a great empire, if facing pressure at home, might choose to expand outward. But there's an even deeper question. If everyone knew that war came with a cost, why couldn't they try to understand each other first? Why couldn't they sit down and find common rules? Because understanding another civilization is itself extremely difficult. Just imagine a person from central China meeting a nomadic group from steppe for the first time. What they might see is no permanent cities, no familiar customers, people always on the move, and they might conclude that people do not follow rules. They cannot be trusted. They may even be dangerous. But from the perspective of some nomadic powers, the Central Plains dynasties might have looked very different. They had wealth, they had cities, but they did not want to enter the war. They prefer to solve problems through trade and negotiation. So both sides were watching each other. But what is said so was an image shaped by their own experience, not the real person or the real world behind it. And that was the most dangerous part. A defensive move could be seen as an attack. A negotiation could be seen as weakness. A lack of understanding eventually turned into distrust. Many wars did not begin because both sides wanted to fight. Instead, they happened because both sides misunderstood the actions of the other side. So why was there so much war between Asian neighbor states? Not because people in the past were naturally more violent, but because of different ways of life. Competing for limited resources created long-lasting tensions, and without shared rules between different civilizations, misunderstanding and fear continued to grow. History has shown us the worst, but it often leaves out what existed beyond the war. The exchange and cooperation that happened alongside conflict. China's history for thousands of years is not simply a history of war. No, it's simply a history of peace. It's more like a story of conflict, exchange, and integration, constantly shaping one another. War leaves recorders, peace leaves silent. And perhaps the real question that history leaves us with is not why people in the past kept fighting, but this when we face the world completely different from our own, we truly understand it. Because many times, what created conflict is not difference itself. It's how we choose to interpret difference.